Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a set of source materials today that demands a truly unique perspective.
Mhm.
This isn't just a cold case. It's a 63-year timeline of escalating violence, linking a single mummified body in a cave to a massive corporate cover-up, high-level extortion, and a series of professional assaults happening right now.
That's right. Our mission here is to function as expert guides for you, tracing those almost invisible threads that connect something like a World War II era receipt for a
It's
flashlight
incredible.
to a modern-day professional stabbing and, high-tech hacking.
Hmm.
This deep dive is really a textbook example of forensic persistence.
It is.
It demonstrates how a multi-generational criminal network, one that's built on silence and wealth, can be completely undone by microscopic details.
And the ignition point for this entire investigation is Caver Doe. Dr. Diane Fallon's team locates the remains deep inside a cave, and this should have been routine archaeological work.
It should have been. The remains were situated about 20 feet below a hole in the cavern ceiling.
So not an easy place to get to.
Not at all. And the scene itself tells a powerful story. You see, Caver Doe was not an amateur. He was equipped with standard caving gear of the era: a helmet, a carbide lamp, a sturdy canteen, and a military-grade backpack. He was prepared.
He knew what he was doing.
He did. However, the crucial missing element was his rope.
So if he's an experienced caver and he has all this other gear, why no rope? And why is he 20 feet below an opening?
The interpretation is tragic
Mhm.
and highly specific. He likely believed he was on solid ground, walking in the dark, and simply stepped out into thin air.
Oh, wow.
That immediate drop down a 20-foot shaft would have caused catastrophic injuries. And the initial analysis suggested he had been down there for a very, very long time.
How long are we talking?
Forensic estimates placed his death somewhere between 50 and 70 years prior. A long time.
You would think that a case this old would afford the investigators time, months, maybe years, to carefully analyze the remains and the environment.
You'd think so. But that quiet time was brutally interrupted.
Why? What happened?
It was interrupted because the moment those remains were brought out of that cave, the investigation struck a nerve in the present day.
Right now.
Right now. Before the team could even fully analyze Caver Doe's injuries or his belongings, their professional and personal safety was completely shattered by a targeted, clearly professional attack.
A professional attack that happened at a funeral, of all places.
At all places. Geologist Mike, who was a key member of the team, was stabbed, and Dr. Fallon herself was assaulted. This wasn't, an accidental mugging or some random crime of opportunity.
But this was a message.
It immediately signaled that the historical cold case was not dead. Powerful people who had successfully kept this secret for 6 decades knew that Caver Doe's body, and maybe more importantly his belongings, posed an existential threat to them.
So they were trying to shut it down.
Immediately shut down the investigation using targeted real-world violence, and the sheer speed of that reaction indicated just how deep the conspiracy ran.
That transition from, dusting off old bones to dodging high-quality scalpel-sharp knives, it's staggering.
Let's really look into the nature of that funeral attack, because the forensics of the wounds themselves speak volumes about the attacker's skill. They absolutely do. Analyzing Mike's wound was essential, not just for his treatment, but for identifying the perpetrator's style, their signature, if you will. The weapon wasn't a cheap pocket knife.
No.
It was double-edged, incredibly sharp, scalpel sharp, in fact,
Yeah.
and at least 6 inches long. This points toward an expensive, purpose-built fighting dagger or maybe a collector's piece.
And what specifically about the injury told the forensic team that the person wielding this weapon wasn't, some panicked amateur?
That's where we get into the truly insightful details.
Yeah.
So the forensic doctor noted that there was absolutely no evidence of rocking within the wound cavity.
Rocking? What does that mean?
So for you, the listener, rocking is what happens when a non-expert, maybe a nervous attacker, stabs someone and then twists the blade, even slightly, because of a lack of control or fear.
Right, it creates more damage.
It causes uneven cutting planes and massive internal damage. The perpetrator here, though, demonstrated an incredibly steady, expert hand. It was.
Yeah.
It was surgical precision.
Meaning they were cool, calm, and knew exactly where to strike.
Exactly. The cut planes matched the entry angle precisely, which was only about 5 degrees upward from level. This person was highly trained. They inflicted severe damage that could have been fatal, but it was controlled violence. It was designed both to silence and to intimidate the entire investigative team.
And what's fascinating here, which often happens in these really complex cases, is that this professional violence became confusingly intertwined with seemingly petty professional and personal harassment, which made it extremely difficult for investigators to see the larger unified pattern right away.
That's a great point. The professional life of Mike, the geologist, was already under attack before the stabbing.
How so?
Well, he had lost his university assistantship because he rejected the advances of a high-ranking academic, Professor Dr. Lyman.
So sexual harassment.
Yes. And when rejected, Lyman began spreading malicious and false rumors about Mike, specifically trying to link him, and by extension, Dr. Fallon's team, to past controversial cases that Dr. Fallon had worked on.
So the team is fighting this high-level academic vendetta. At the same time, they're facing physical threats from unknown professional killers. That just adds an immense layer of noise to the investigation.
It does. It's meant to distract and discredit them. And the harassment escalated beyond Mike's career and reached Neva, the crime scene specialist, at her home.
What happened to her?
Her house was viciously vandalized and ransacked. They spray-painted vile, threatening messages on her walls, suggesting a clear connection to the people who were attacking Mike and targeting the investigation.
That these were personal attacks.
Deeply personal. The messages were personally degrading, explicitly targeting Neva in a way that just screamed personal malice. It made it hard to immediately connect this to a 63-year-old conspiracy.
It's the sheer duality of the motives, isn't it? You have this personal, sexual, and professional spite mixing seamlessly with organized criminal coercion.
Right. And you have to imagine the environment they were working in. You can maybe rationalize an academic spat, but when that turns into masked figures attacking you at a funeral and spray painting your colleague's house,
you realize the stakes have changed.
Fundamentally, the initial harassment made the team vulnerable, and it distracted them, I think, from seeing the true, powerful source of the violence right away.
Okay, so before we move on to the actual dating of Caver Doe, we need to briefly mention the box that later caused so much confusion for the attackers.
Oh, yes.
The sources mention the planned arrival of some remains referred to as the Moonhater witch bones, coming all the way from the Rose Museum in Dorset.
This is a critical detail for the later break-in. These remains are ancient European bones, referred to by the descendant, a woman named Charlotte, by the more accurate term, Anne Owen.
And
they were just being temporarily housed at Dr. Fallon's lab. The thieves, operating on highly specific but slightly flawed intel, they knew the Taggarts wanted the cave bones destroyed, they initially targeted this box.
So they were just after anything that sounded ancient and cave-related.
Pretty much.
Which confirms they weren't just trying to steal a body, but specifically trying to steal evidence.
Precisely. The fact that the thieves grabbed the Anne box first and then had to immediately search for the correctly labeled box containing Caver Doe's personal effects, it confirms two things. First, they were working for someone, the Taggarts, who had limited, specific knowledge of the lab's inventory.
And second,
their ultimate target was the physical artifacts that told the story, not just the mummified remains.
Here's where it gets really, really interesting. The key to cracking this decades-old case wasn't found in the skeletal remains of Caver Doe,
who we now know is Dale Wayne Russell.
Right. It was found in a masterclass of forensic textile analysis performed on his clothing.
It truly is a remarkable demonstration of material culture. I mean, when biological evidence is inconclusive, everyday objects, they become the timestamp. Jin, the specialist, focused entirely on Caver Doe's waist overalls, his blue jeans. And through meticulous dating of their construction features, she established an incredibly tight 14-year window for his death.
Okay, let's break down that timeline, feature by feature, because this level of detail is what separates a summary from a deep dive.
Let's do it.
What were the specific features that told Jin he died before 1937?
Okay, so we have 4 defining pre-1937 features. First, the back cinch. That's that little mini belt sewn across the lower back of the waistband.
I think I've seen those on old-timey photos.
You probably have. It was a standard feature before tailoring became universal,
Yeah.
and it was phased out right before World War II. Second, the crotch rivet. A highly unpopular metal rivet placed at the seam where the legs met.
Why unpopular?
Well, let's just say if you were sitting too close to a campfire, it could get uncomfortable. But it was famously removed permanently by the company during WWII, simply to conserve metal, though it had been a source of complaints for decades.
Okay, so a back cinch and a crotch rivet. What else?
Third, the back pocket rivets were exposed. You could see the copper heads on the outside of the pockets.
And why is that a big deal? Why would they change that?
Because cowboys were complaining.
Hmm.
I'm serious. The exposed copper rivets on the back pockets, which were meant to reinforce the stress points, would scratch their expensive leather saddles. After years of complaints, the company developed a new sewing method in 1937 that moved the rivets inside the pocket fabric.
So it solved the saddle scratching problem.
Exactly. And Caver Doe's jeans had the old-style exposed rivets.
Okay, so cinch, crotch rivet, exposed pocket rivets all point to pre-1937. Now, how did they establish the start date? How did they know the death was after 1922?
That's the easiest one of all, the presence of belt loops.
Belt loops.
Believe it or not, early models of these jeans didn't have belt loops at all. People just used suspenders. Belt loops were first added in 1922. Caver Doe had them, so he couldn't have died before that year.
So now we have a window, 1922 to 1937, a 15-year window. How did Gin tighten that even further?
By one more critical missing piece, the red back pocket label.
Ah, the iconic little red tag.
That's the one. The distinctive red woven label, designed so workers could recognize the brand from a distance, was first sewn onto the back pocket edge in 1936.
And Caver Doe's jeans.
Gin confirmed that Caver Doe's jeans not only lacked the label, but showed no evidence it had ever been sewn on and subsequently ripped off. There were no stitch marks, no fading. It was never there.
So combining the belt loops, which are post-1922, the visible rivets and cinch, which are pre-1937, and the missing red label, pre-1936.
You get a precise 14-year window, 1922 to 1936. It's absolutely brilliant forensic work using only fabric and metal.
And this timeline was reinforced by his other gear, right?
It was. The U.S. Army backpack was from the WWI era. And then there's the flashlight,
The Mickey Mouse flashlight.
a Mickey Mouse flashlight made by U.S. Elite. That specific model, featuring Mickey, was only introduced in 1935, tightening the potential window of death even further to 1935 or 1936.
It's incredible how a children's novelty item, ruined by leaking batteries, could provide such hard dating evidence.
Well, unfortunately, those D-cell batteries had leaked acid, damaging the interior of the pack, some candles, some handkerchiefs. But that damage itself confirmed the passage of time and the state of the gear when the honor fell.
They even found animal hair, I read.
They did. Rabbit, squirrel, horse, dog,
Oh.
which suggested Dale Wayne Russell was probably a hunter, maybe rode bareback, and didn't change his work clothes all that often.
And finally, the smallest yet most crucial piece of physical evidence found near the cavern opening, the button.
This is the definitive link. Dr. Fallon located a single, rare, expensive button wedged between two rocks right near the shaft opening. It was clearly not for the jeans. Its quality and design suggested it came from something high-end, something out of place for a rugged caver.
And this tiny piece of trace evidence.
It was the physical anchor that would ultimately connect Dale Wayne Russell to the powerful Taggart conspiracy 63 years later.
Regarding Dale Wayne Russell himself, the skeletal analysis paints a pretty painful picture, confirming he did not die instantly.
No, the analysis showed massive trauma consistent with that 20-foot fall. He suffered a complex injury profile, a compound fracture of the right tibia,
Oh, that's brutal.
broken ankle and wrist, and fractured lumbar vertebrae. A compound fracture, for anyone listening, is where the bone pierces the skin. It's agonizing and carries a high risk of lethal infection. Trapped down there in immense pain, Dale Wayne Russell would have suffered terribly before succumbing to his injuries and later infection.
And his final painful note confirmed the ultimate act of betrayal.
It did. The note confirmed he was not alone. He was waiting for someone to return for him, confirming he had been abandoned.
So it wasn't an accident.
Well, the fall might have been. But what came after? That transformed the case from a tragic accident into a crime of malicious neglect, and it set the stage for the cover-up that defined the next 6 decades.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer precision achieved from analyzing everyday objects, the jeans, the flashlight, the receipt we haven't even talked about yet, it just shows that forensic analysis has to be holistic.
It's a testament to the fact that you can't overlook any piece of material culture, no matter how trivial it seems.
Okay, so we established that finding Caver Doe triggered violence. The next phase of the conspiracy was just a blatant, high-tech break-in, specifically targeting the evidence at Dr. Fallon's crime lab.
This was a highly sophisticated operation. It proved that the orchestrators had access to significant financial and technical resources. The thieves, who were later identified as computer hackers Neil Valentine and Randy McRae, they didn't use brute force on the main vault door.
No battering ram.
No, they went for the system intelligence itself, the brains of the operation.
How exactly did they breach a state-of-the-art security system?
They bypassed the security system control box, which was located in the basement. So they were essentially going underneath the system's primary defenses. Then they used a computer, a specialized hacking rig, to decode the lock on the Bone Lab vault. It's a silent, intellectual form of forced entry.
And once inside, they weren't shy about using violence against the personnel.
Not at all. They neutralized the guards and the night receptionist using both stun guns and chloroform. This level of preparation, bringing high-tech hacking gear and incapacitating agents, it just demonstrates a chilling ruthlessness and a clear understanding that they could not leave witnesses.
But they made a crucial mistake, right? They grabbed the wrong box.
They did. And this detail, ironically, was key for Dr. Fallon because it proved their ignorance of the specific remains and their intense interest in the associated artifacts. They initially stole the box containing the alleged ancient Moon-Hater witch bones, the Anne remains we mentioned earlier.
Because they were labeled cave bones.
Yeah, exactly. A simple but critical error.
What happened when they realized their mistake?
They immediately went back for the second box, which contained Caver Doe's true belongings. This box was clearly labeled with the evidence they were actually looking for. The rope, the Mickey Mouse flashlight, the moon pie wrappers, the railroad spikes.
So they had specific instructions.
Very specific instructions to destroy those items. Dr. Fallon deduced that the Taggarts weren't scared of Dale Wayne Russell's skeleton. They were terrified of the story his possessions told.
And while dealing with the security nightmare, the team was also investigating the two contemporary victims, Jake Stanley and Donnie Martin, found submerged in the quarry. The quarry does.
Right. These men were clearly looking for something hidden underwater.
And the initial link between the Caver Doe case and these quarry murders came from a piece of digital forensics that, frankly, changed everything.
It did. David, the crime lab's computer specialist, was working on a mystery photograph found with Caver Doe. It was an archival photo. It was waterlogged, blurry, almost useless.
And this is where the advanced technical deep dive begins. The critique pointed out we really need to explain why standard software failed here and why they needed something more powerful.
Absolutely. So standard digital image enhancement, like what you might have on your phone or computer, it relies on sharpening existing pixels or adjusting the contrast. This photo, however, suffered from severe degradation, blur, and environmental noise. It was, for all intents and purposes, archival soup.
So what did David do?
To clear it up, he sourced advanced image processing programs borrowed from NASA.
From NASA?
Yes, programs originally designed for analyzing hazy satellite images or deep space photographs where noise reduction and spectral analysis are paramount.
So techniques designed for looking across the galaxy were adapted to look 20 feet under a quarry lake. How did this space-age software perform?
It was startlingly effective. Using algorithms like deconvolution, which mathematically reverses the blurring process, and sophisticated noise reduction, the foggy blur of the archival photograph was clarified.
And what did it show?
Enough to reveal what the quarry does had been looking for. An old car submerged underwater. And crucially, on the backseat shelf of that car, there was the unmistakable skeletal image of a human skull.
That immediately confirmed the location of another decades-old body.
Another victim, who was eventually identified as Jewel Southwell or Plymouth Doe.
Oh, and how was she identified?
Jewel was identified through a highly personal touch. Neva's forensic sketch of the body's facial features matched a family portrait brought in by Jewel's descendants. She had vanished on June 14, 1942.
And the family's narrative
Was that she had run off with Dale Wayne Russell, who disappeared around the same time.
But the physical evidence found with Jewel Southwell, however, it definitively shattered that runaway narrative and proved she and Russell were murdered together.
Oh, absolutely. The evidence found in the submerged car was crucial. Jewel was wearing a yellow gingham dress and an apron embroidered with Ray's Diner, confirming her job as a waitress. But the smoking gun was her gray, hand-knitted sweater.
The sweater.
It had a row of silver buttons down the front, and one of those buttons was a perfect physical match to the rare, expensive button that Dr. Fallon had found wedged in the rocks near Caver Doe in the cave opening.
That single button. That tiny piece of trace evidence linked the two victims, the one left in the cave and the one sunk in the car, to a shared, violent fate.
The connection was undeniable. The button confirmed that Jewel and Dale were together in close proximity immediately before the incident in the cave. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a physical link that no amount of wealth or political pressure could erase.
And the ultimate confirmation of the timeline and identities came from Corey, the conservation expert, who faced the extremely fragile waterlogged documents recovered from the submerged car. We need to talk about the technical genius involved in saving those records.
This is a phenomenal example of advanced forensic conservation. Waterlogged paper. If you just let it air dry, it shrinks, it warps, the ink runs. The document is destroyed forever.
So what did he do?
Corey used a specialized process called vacuum freeze drying.
And for those of us who don't spend time preserving historical documents, what does vacuum freeze drying involve and why is it so superior?
It's essentially skipping the liquid phase entirely. So the documents are frozen solid, then they are placed in a vacuum chamber and all the air is pumped out. The frozen water, the ice in the paper, then transitions directly into a gas.
A process called sublimation.
Exactly. It turns into vapor without ever turning back into damaging liquid water. This stabilizes the material. It allows the paper to be restored without warping or bleeding the ink.
And what document did this meticulous, technically demanding process yield?
The definitive document. The one that blew the case wide open. A receipt made out to D.W. Russell.
Wow.
The receipt detailed the purchase of a carbide lantern, 40 feet of rope, and incredibly, 2 moon pies.
The moon pie.
This receipt confirmed, beyond any doubt, that Caver Doe was Dale Wayne Russell, and that he had been alive and making purchases in June 1942, right before his and Jules' simultaneous disappearance.
Oh.
This single piece of paper established the date, the identity, and the preparation for the trip that led to their deaths.
Think about that. A multi-generational conspiracy brought down by a receipt for a simple snack and a piece of climbing gear.
The smallest things.
So with the identities confirmed and the timeline established in 1942, the powerful figures behind the secret, they went into panic mode. They transitioned from targeted stabbings and high-tech theft to outright personal extortion against Dr. Fallon.
The conspiracy became terrifyingly personal. Diane was chloroformed in the elevator of the museum, a brazen act in a public building.
In her own workplace.
In her workplace.
Mm.
She was tied up in a dark, isolated room in the basement, Room J, by the 2 hackers, Valentine and McRae.
And their demands were absolutely clear.
Destroy the evidence. Specifically, they demanded she eliminate the remains of Dale Wayne Russell and Jules Southwell, arguing that the crime was 63 years old and thus untriable anyway. They were trying to frame it as a logical, victimless act of preservation for the powerful.
But the hackers went a chilling step further. They revealed their capability to strike at Diane's family.
This was the most chilling revelation of the entire investigation. The hackers revealed they were responsible for the massive identity theft that resulted in Dr. Fallon's own mother being arrested and wrongly imprisoned in Toomsburg Prison for Women.
How did identity theft achieve that level of systemic damage? I mean, that's not just stealing a credit card number.
No, this was weaponized data. They hacked federal systems, weaponizing the mother's identity to create records of high-level financial crime. They demonstrated to Diane that they could reach into the deepest, most protected parts of her life and wreak havoc.
They even bragged about it.
Valentine actually bragged, "We got to your mother without breaking a sweat," proving their ability to manipulate the federal justice system from afar.
This confirmed to Diane that the orchestrators weren't just low-level thugs. They were operating at the highest level of corporate and political power.
She immediately deduced the involvement of the Taggart family, specifically Emmett Taggart, a massive museum contributor and a relative of a prominent politician running for senator.
And she had physical evidence to back that up.
She did. The snapshot recovered with Caver Doe, showing a young woman, was identified as Rosemary Taggart, Emmett's wife. That confirmed the 1942 connection and established that the Taggarts were central to Dale Wayne Russell's disappearance. The powerful family man had a long-buried secret connecting him to the missing Caver.
Emmett Taggart didn't wait for the police. He tried to solve the problem the way wealthy people often do.
With a massive bribe. He called Diane, attempting to use the museum as leverage, offering a staggering donation if she would simply make the evidence disappear.
And in that conversation,
He indirectly confirmed his involvement. But his words revealed his profound classism and, frankly, his lack of humanity. He dismissively referred to Jules Southwell as merely a waitress with an illegitimate child.
wow.
That statement just solidified Diane's determination to expose him.
The long-term cover-up, which started with abandonment in 1942, culminated in more bloodshed, this time within the Taggart family itself.
It did. Emmett Taggart was shot dead at his grandson Robert Lamont's farm. His wife, Rosemary, was found at the scene and taken into custody. And what's noteworthy is her immediate demand. She would only speak to Diane.
signaling a profound level of distrust for the authorities.
And a recognition of Diane's own impartial rigor.
While Rosemary was responsible for Emmett's death, forensic evidence later linked the Taggarts directly to another cold case victim, Flora Martin, or Jane Doe, whose remains were later found.
This suggests that Taggarts were killing anyone who posed a historical threat. The complexity of the cover-up is truly mind-boggling. The murder weapon used to kill Emmett Taggart was a knife, and it had a missing tip.
A missing tip.
Investigators were able to match the tip of that knife to one embedded in Flora Martin's bone.
Wait, how does a knife used in a present-day murder match evidence from a past cold case?
It strongly implies that the knife had been used by Emmett, or someone connected to him, in a previous assault or murder, and the broken tip remained in the older victim's remains, only to be matched later when the full weapon was recovered.
That is undeniable physical proof of a long-standing pattern of violence.
Exactly. And the second piece of damning evidence solidified the connection to the contemporary victims, Jake Stanley and Donnie Martin, who were looking for an inheritance.
The quarry victims.
Flora Martin's letter referencing this inheritance was found beneath Emmett Taggart's desk, bearing Emmett's own blood spatter from his murder. Furthermore, Stephen Taggart's fingerprints were also found on the letter.
So the picture is complete. Emmett Taggart not only left Dale Wayne Russell to die in 1942, but also spent the subsequent decades killing anyone who sought the truth or the inheritance, using his wealth and power to disguise these crimes.
And Rosemary's eventual confession to Diane confirmed the heart of the 1942 crime. She confirmed that Emmett Taggart had found Dale Wayne Russell injured in the cave. Emmett gave him water and those moon pies, the receipt for which brought them down, and then promised to return with help.
But he didn't.
Instead, Emmett chose reputation and wealth, abandoning Russell to a slow, agonizing death. Russell's final note, waiting for Emmett to return, confirmed this cold-hearted betrayal.
The investigation uncovered a singular generation-spanning conspiracy driven by greed and control. But the complexity of this case is stunning because it simultaneously involved a deeply disturbed individual whose actions were driven by pathology, operating completely separately but causing chaos for the same investigative team.
That duality, the calculated political crime versus the sheer individual depravity, is essential to understanding the trauma the team endured. We must first discuss the internal betrayal by Lane Emery, the head of Crime Lab Security, who attempted to seal the evidence for the Taggarts.
Why would a man in such a trusted, high-level position betray the institution he was hired to protect?
The motivation was born of desperation and, I think, a twisted attempt at providence. Emery had received a grim medical diagnosis.
He was dying.
He was. And knowing his time was limited, he wanted to leave his family financially secure, and the Taggarts offered a massive cash sum. He was conflicted, though. He even admitted to Diane that he tried to persuade the Taggarts to offer the money as a donation to the museum instead, knowing Dr. Fallon's devotion to the institution.
He still attempted the theft despite his conflicted feelings.
He did, believing he could slip away with the evidence during a chaotic security changeover, but Emery was killed before he could complete the theft. And his killer exposed a horrifying, independent layer of crime already hidden beneath the museum.
Lane Emery was killed in the osteology lab by the man who had been stalking and attacking the team all along, Dr. German Sutcliffe.
Yes. Sutcliffe was the highly skilled attacker who stabbed Mike and Diane at the funeral. He was the one making those chilling, high-pitched phone calls to Mike and McGregor, babbling about rabbits and being the top of the food chain.
This reveals that the person who caused the most direct physical harm and chaos, the professional killer, was entirely unaffiliated with the Taggart conspiracy.
Correct. Sutcliffe was identified immediately after killing Emery. He was described as a small, strong man with a high-pitched voice. And his identity was shocking. Dr. German Sutcliffe, a highly respected, successful gynecologist.
Wait, a respected professional was conducting this horrifying activity beneath the very museum dedicated to science. How did that go undetected?
This raises an important question about institutional blind spots and, the compartmentalization of high-functioning psychopaths. Sutcliffe was a necrophiliac.
Oh, God.
And the sickening revelation was that his rabbits were dismembered female corpses he had stolen and was keeping chained to metal tables in a hidden sub-basement room below the museum.
The very idea that such depravity could operate beneath a public institution like that, using the building's chaos as cover.
It exposed a profound secret pathology that had nothing to do with Dale Wayne Russell, yet violently intersected with the investigation. Sutcliffe was an opportunistic predator. He used the chaos caused by the Taggarts, the high alert, the constant internal security issues, as perfect cover for his own horrific deeds, including murdering Lane Emery.
And his pathology even extended to the historical remains the team was examining, didn't it?
Yes, his actions intersected with the remains of Flora Martin, the Jane Doe. Investigators found that Sutcliffe had a rash consistent with dermestid beetle bites, and he had stolen dermestid beetles from a university campus.
What are dermestid beetles for those who don't follow forensic entomology?
They are commonly known as flesh-eating beetles. Forensic labs use them specifically to clean soft tissue off bones because they leave the skeletal structure perfectly intact for analysis.
And Sutcliffe.
Sutcliffe, in his perversion, had used them on human remains. This strongly suggests he may have been the one who inflicted the knife slices and attempted to accelerate decomposition on Flora Martin's bones and torso.
So Sutcliffe used his pathology and his forensic knowledge, gained perhaps from his professional life or just his obsession, to compound the existing mystery, potentially trying to throw off the time of death calculation for Flora Martin, all while operating a horrifying secret lab.
It shows the staggering contrast in motives. The Taggarts operated through cold, calculated control, using money and professional hackers to protect their reputation. Sutcliffe operated through pure pathological chaos, using the public trust afforded to him as a doctor to facilitate unspeakable depravity. Dr. Fallon's team was caught between these two distinct forces of evil.
So what does this all mean? We began this deep dive with an accidental fall in a cave in the 1940s and ended up with a complex web of arrests that spanned identity theft, extortion, professional assassinations, and horrifying depravity.
All linked by a rare button and a massive lie told 63 years ago.
The sheer scope of the investigation reinforces several key takeaways about the power dynamic between wealth, power, and scientific truth.
First, the incredible power of forensic rigor to overcome influence. The evidence, those beautifully dated blue jeans, the vacuum freeze-dried receipt for a carbide lantern and 2 moon pies, the NASA-enhanced photograph, it all provided undeniable physical proof.
They could bribe, threaten, and employ professional killers, but they couldn't argue with a chemical analysis of a 1930s rivet or a receipt signed by D.W. Russell. The truth, literally, was in the details.
Precisely. Second, the case exposed critical vulnerabilities in institutional security that you rarely hear about. Not only was the museum susceptible to external high-tech threats from hackers like Valentine and McRae,
Who demonstrated they could weaponize identity theft against federal systems.
but is also profoundly vulnerable to betrayal from within by Lane Emery, and vulnerable to deep, hidden pathology like Dr. Sutcliffe's.
The lesson here is that security has to be monitored externally and internally, and that desperation or concealed malice can be just as destructive as external financial coercion.
And finally, the personal tragedy at the center of the conspiracy, highlighted by Rosemary Taggart's ultimate decision to speak only to Dr. Fallon. Her testimony confirmed the absolute truth. Emmett Taggart left Dale Wayne Russell to die in that cave after promising to save him. The entire 63-year, multi-million-dollar effort resulting in assaults, murders, and massive corruption was to protect the reputation of a man who was, at heart, a profound coward.
This brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive. The Taggart family spent more than 6 decades and likely millions of dollars to hide a historical crime and protect their powerful reputation, resulting in compounding violence, murder, and systemic corruption in the present day. What are the long-term, inescapable, and often escalating risks for modern corporations, institutions, and powerful families when they rely on silence and wealth to bury historical wrongdoing, only to have that secret unearthed by something as small and unassuming as a misplaced button? That's a secret that always comes with a price.